Have you ever felt lost in life, or alone, like you constantly have something to prove to the rest of the world, or even to yourself? I do, and I figure that if you're watching this, you do as well, or you're at least somewhat curious. Let's explore something, a correlation if you will, and this personally involves two subjects that I'm very passionate about, the subjects of disability and mental health. Let's see what happens when the gifted speak up, because we certainly have a lot to offer when we're given a chance. And I hope that your mind is at least expanded and open by the end of this. I ask that you take in everything, relax, have a think, and just let me know how you feel afterwards. The fact is, they never gave me a spotlight, so I had to take one. This is for anyone who may need it at any point throughout their lives. My name is Harvey. I'm 23 from Bradford. That's all you need to know about me. For now.
Hi Harvey.
Hello.
Can you please tell me about your experiences and your background with mental health?
I suffer from a condition known as Cerebral Palsy, which simply put means I'm not able to walk. And with mental health, I feel like it plays kind of a big factor. I mean, I feel I kind of don't know how to word it, but I feel like when I was younger, it didn't really affect me as much. But as you kind of get older and you kind of develop into your own person, you kind of like throwing a bunch of thoughts around and figuring out who you want to become. So I kind of feel like it affects me in a normal way, that it kind of would affect anyone else, if you get what I mean.
And how does managing positive mental health affect your day-to-day life?
I feel like it's important to try and stay on top of it. I mean, I know it's hard, especially in today's current climate, because we've had the pandemic and everything, which we're still going through. I feel like it's important to mention that. And it's important to manage positive mental health so you can kind of keep on track of things and what you need to do. But I also have days where I feel completely unmotivated to kind of do things. And with that being said, I might not do anything for like a few days, but then I might just push myself one day.
What are some challenges you have faced linked to mental health and how have you overcome these?
As I've said, I feel sometimes I feel unmotivated and I have to kind of force myself to do things. Also, sometimes when it comes to looking for an escape, I kind of struggle with that because with with my circumstances and how I've had to deal with them over the years, they've kind of affected my social life in a way where I don't really get out as often as I'd like to. I can't really see friends all that often because they've either got other commitments or they're always busy doing other stuff, whatever they're doing. And
What are some challenges you face linked to disability and how have you overcome these?
well, if I'm honest, it's gotten easier as I've gotten older, just because of the fact I'm used to everything. But I feel like it's more challenging from a mental standpoint than a physical standpoint, because physically I'm in my own routine. I know how to kind of do things like kind of survive at home, but mentally it's kind of like, because again I'm still having like the thought processes that a normal person would, and I feel like um, those two kind of things, they kind of interlink in a way.
Can you pinpoint one thing about your situation that people might not know about or speak of the importance of?
I feel like with disability, I feel like people often assume that we can only do so much, or that we're only capable of doing so much, and it's about like breaking through that kind of threshold and showing people that you really can do stuff. And like when it comes to considering people, I mean, it might be just me, but I often feel like I'm not really considered in things all too often, or I don't really feel like I'm a part of anything. Like people are quick to tell you that you're a part of something, this and that, but when you need like reassurance, they often fail to kind of provide that.
What are some common misconceptions about disability and mental health, and can you shut them down?
Again, I think people always assume that we can only do so much, or that we're only capable of doing so much, and it's not always the case. I mean, it's not just physical disability, it comes in many forms, like hidden disabilities, mental health struggles, and I feel like people could do with like educating themselves and just taking the time to like really focus in on stuff. I mean, if you've got a disabled person in say like a friend group, you would kind of take that time to kind of get to know more about them, and so you can kind of accommodate for them. Whereas I feel like people, like in a wider sense, could do with like educating themselves on things that are important.
What is your preferred coping mechanism when it comes to disability and mental health?
I prefer music, films, YouTube videos, anything that kind of like allows me to have kind of an escape and forget about the things that I might be feeling that day or the things that are going around in my head. Like, they might be kind of trivial to some people, but I feel like the small things are kind of like often overlooked and underappreciated. So for me, I'd say anything from like music, because for me that's an important form of expression as an art form. Films as well, because there's so many different types, genres, and whatnot. And YouTube videos, because anyone can kind of get a camera and kind of make something and upload it. So I don't know, seeing all these people do all these kind of things kind of gives me like a sense of hope and inspiration that I can perhaps maybe follow in their footsteps one day. So my kind of escapism's all interlinked.
Do you think enough is being done to eliminate the stigma surrounding disability and mental health?
Not all. I feel like people could do with like educating themselves a lot with the way social media is. And again, this factors in the pandemic with the way social media is. People will often post things and share things to do with mental health or kind of memes to try and be funny. But in regards to mental health, it's like they'll share posts along the lines of, oh, 80% of men are suicide victims, blah, blah, blah. It's okay to speak up. And while sharing that stuff's all well and good, you can only do so much with it. I feel like people often don't take the next step. They wouldn't necessarily go out of the way to check up on their friends that need it. And also the phrase, I'll always be here for you. I find that kind of annoying because I feel like when people can't live up to that, which is kind of often because they've kind of got other commitments and whatnot, busy working, and I understand that, but at the same time it's kind of like, are you sure you can't take 5 or 10 minutes out of your day to check up on how your friends are doing and whatnot? So with that, it's like, instead of saying I'll always be here for you, because that sets up unrealistic expectations and kind of false promises, and people who often expect that from maybe a good friend of theirs would feel let down. So I feel like they should think about changing that term of phrasing. Maybe instead of saying I'll always be here for you, maybe say something along the lines of I'll be here for you when I can, because at least that way nothing's ever promised. And I feel like just kind of changing, like, I don't know, maybe a few words in that sentence can like really help people and put things into perspective.
Have you got any advice for anyone watching this who might be finding it tough right now?
this is going to sound really strange, really weird, but I would say personally this is not to like, I would say to like, don't be afraid to embrace the reality of your situation. And what I mean by that is, say one day you wake up and you're feeling a bit down in the dumps and I don't know, you feel a bit upset. I would say to kind of embrace that and not shy away from it, because we often go through life telling people we're all fine and stuff, putting on a smile, and sometimes people can see through that, and it's not always kind of easy to maintain that kind of image. So I would say to kind of embrace the reality of your situation. Like if you're feeling sad and whatnot, maybe embrace that for a little bit, acknowledge that it's there, because that way it kind of gets you thinking about what you can do to kind of change that, make yourself feel a bit better, and you know, I feel like that kind of stuff really helps. Individual struggles can take many forms and sometimes they're not always obvious. How many times have you taken a step back to consider the thoughts, feelings and validity of those? I understand it's not always easy, but at the same time, gaining an understanding of people around us can make a world of difference in helping them feel like they belong. And I know that from my own personal experience, it often feels like I'm being more considerate of others than they are of me. I want to pass the spotlight over to a few special individuals who graciously came forward to share their own experiences and stories. One of the greatest lessons I learned from this was that communication can open up over chance for education, and I feel like it's especially appropriate for a film like this. It's not just me who deserves to be acknowledged, so let's hear what the people have to say. Hi Toby, pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you too.
Could you please give me some background on your experiences regarding mental health?
Mental health, yeah, absolutely. So I'm quite lucky enough to say I've never properly been affected by mental health. However, not to say that my life hasn't been affected by it. I'm lucky enough to be a really proud uncle. Both my nephews have severe medical conditions regarding the heart, regarding having pacemakers and stuff like that. And it's incredible to see how much mental health affects young children now. It's not just this stigma which it doesn't exist, it only affects older people. It's worrying to see how much it affects younger children these days, especially my nephew. He is such a talented and such a clever little boy. However, because of his medical conditions and implications, he sort of gets excluded almost, and you start to really see it when George is telling me I don't want to go to school tomorrow, they're going to leave me out again, and it's really sad. But unfortunately, it's quite sad. This is the world we live in, and this is what needs to be changed.
With what your nephew suffered with, do you feel like that has a knock-on effect on how it makes you feel?
Yes, because I think whenever you see a family member upset or apprehensive or nervous, it's going to make you feel the exact same emotions. Now, academically, George thrives. He is an amazing little boy. He's not behind at school. It doesn't stop him physically. But it is sad to see that when someone will leave George out because of his medical conditions, because they're too scared to go near him. Yeah, it is quite sad to see.
Why do you think they leave him out? Because of what he suffers with?
Well, I don't think it's intentional. I don't think any child would intentionally leave someone out. I think it's because they don't have the knowledge about it. I think for a young child to see someone who doesn't look similar to them, I feel it's because they've not been taught that it's okay not to be this normality. It's okay not to be normal. But I think like in schools and primary education, it's not taught. And I think the children do it because they think if we hurt George or something goes wrong, then we could get in trouble. And I think it's unfair that stops George from living a normal life compared to others.
Do you feel like enough is being done to like raise awareness surrounding mental health?
I think in secondary education and college, mental health and disability, that is something that's talked about a lot. I I think in primary education, it's not talked about enough. I think, you know, you're growing up with these children from reception to year 6, that's 7 years of your life you're together, and they're not being taught that it's okay not to be normal, it's okay not to be able to walk, be in a wheelchair, have a heart problem.
Do you feel like, as a society, do you feel like that we're moving in the right direction in terms of representation and helping people feel like they belong and stuff like that?
I think we are, yeah. As a whole, we are moving in the right direction. I just don't think it's at the pace it should be. I feel like we are taking baby steps when we should be running. It's quite sad to see because so many people who are talented in this industry are getting left behind because they can't do what a normal able-bodied person could do, and it's wrong because who's to say they're not as talented as the other person? Which it's wrong, but we are slowly getting there to allowing equality for all. Yeah.
What does George want to do when he grows up?
Oh gosh, what does George not want to do when he grows up? He's massive on football. He loves football. Newcastle United. It's where he was there for 3 years of his life when he was in hospital, so he loves Newcastle. He loves animals. I think he told me recently he wanted to be a zookeeper. He loves helping animals and looking after them, which is really, really quite nice to see.
Hi, it was a pleasure to meet you. Could you please give me your thoughts regarding mental health and like your experiences with it?
So, when I was 15, I was diagnosed with autism and anxiety disorder as well, and OCD. I feel like, I mean, I don't really tell people that I've got disabilities, just because when I was younger there was a lot of stereotypes behind it, and you know, a lot of people would joke about them. A lot of my friends would laugh at people with autism, so I tend to not tell people about it. I mean, when I was going through college, no one knew I had any disabilities, so I just kind of kept them close to me and didn't really tell people about it.
How does it affect you on a day-to-day basis?
I feel like, because obviously I'm 22 now, so I've been diagnosed for about 7 years. I feel like I've been able to cope with it through that time. When I was first diagnosed, it was a lot harder. I didn't really know how to cope with it. So family was really important. I mean, they still are, they help me through on a weekly basis. If I've got any concerns or anything, you know, they're always there to talk to, and they really help me get through it. I feel I'm a lot more independent than I was, and I think through obviously the 7 years that I've had with it, it's done really well to cope.
In the beginning, why do you think you chose to hide your struggles?
I mean, I still tend to hide it now. Not as much as before. I just because of the stigma behind it and people, you know, judging and thinking that everyone with a certain disability is the same. And people didn't understand it, autism, around like 5 years ago. I mean, there's been a lot of awareness over the last 5 years about it, and people understand it more because more people have been like diagnosed, and obviously schools and stuff are doing a lot more about it now. But people didn't understand it, and they just thought it was something, especially when I was younger, you know, people just took the mick out of it and stuff. So I just tended to hide it.
What's your preferred coping mechanism when it comes to autism?
Talking to family, I'd say. I mean, it's just nice to, if I've got a concern or if I'm struggling on a day-to-day basis, it's really helpful to use them and to talk to them about it. I mean, I don't think I'd have got through it without them. And you know, teachers at school and stuff, they were amazing. It took me quite a long time to get diagnosed because people just thought it was bad behaviour. But as I said, I don't think I'd have got through it without my family. That's my main coping mechanism, is just to talk to people.
What advice would you give to people that perhaps don't have the same support network when it comes to like speaking to people?
There's a lot of organisations out there that you can contact. There's one called Minds Matter, which are really good, and there'll be many others. I just recommend, trying to get in contact with an organisation which you can talk to. I mean, or just a friend, speak to a friend about it, teacher. If you can't talk to your family, then I think a teacher or a friend is a good way forward.
Do you feel like there's a difference in the way that you perhaps cope with your autism now as opposed to like when you were younger?
Yeah, so I mean, when I was younger, unfortunately when I was in primary school, I was diagnosed just after year 6. I was unable to sit my SATs because I was going through the diagnosis. I was unable to be in the classroom when I was getting diagnosed because I just wouldn't go in the classroom. So I was unable to sit my SATs. So when I went to secondary school, I was in literally the lowest sets for everything. But I was actually quite smart. So I mean, it was all about studying really hard and yeah, I think I've carried that on into being an adult. I'm always quite academic, but then when it comes to social situations, I'm a bit more keep out of the way a little bit more, a bit quieter. But yeah, at the moment in my studies, I'm a second year student at the Bradford School of Art, doing a Bachelor of Arts degree.
Do you have any advice for people that might be struggling with anything right now?
Just talk to someone. I think it's the best way to get help. I think if you talk to, so you're not bottling it all up inside. I think if you talk to someone and they can help, it's amazing. And do the things you enjoy. Hobbies are really important to me. I do a lot of sport, which keep me focused and not thinking about the things that panic me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Gina, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Could you please give me some background on your condition?
Yeah, so I suffer with a condition called endometriosis, which a lot of people haven't really heard of, but it's quite common in women. Statistics show that it affects around 1 in 10 women in the UK. So yeah, I've suffered with that since I was about 19, and I'm now nearly 24.
How does it affect your day-to-day life?
So it's a lot of it is the tiredness and the fatigue. It can be really hard to kind of function and do day-to-day activities like other people. I do sleep a lot when I'm not having a good day. The way I describe it is it feels like I've been hit by a truck. It's horrible. But it can just cause like severe pain. And there has been times before where it's caused like loss of control of like my bladder and stuff like that. So when it was really bad and at its worst, I would literally be confined to my bed or bathroom all day. And it's usually I have my hot water bottle with me, and if you ever see me with that, or people ask me, oh, why have you got that? And it's because it dulls the pain sometimes. It just makes me feel a bit more comforted if I've got to go somewhere.
Can you pinpoint one thing about your condition that people might not know and shine a light on it perhaps?
I think the main thing about chronic pain, and especially hidden disabilities or hidden illnesses, is that when people look okay, or they're not physically disabled, if you like, people assume that they're okay. So I think that it's really important for people's conditions to be talked about and for education to be encouraged around all different kinds of illnesses. Because a lot of people say to me, they might see me with my hot water bottle walking around the office looking fine, and they'll say, oh, are you cold? Oh, have you got backache? It's kind of like, no, I've got a chronic pain condition that affects my ovaries, actually. It's one of them that's like, I'm actually in agony. So I think that's the biggest misconception, and people don't really know what endometriosis is and conditions like this.
Is there a personal lesson that dealing with your struggle has taught you?
I think be less judgmental of other people. Sometimes unconscious bias overtakes how you act in your day-to-day life. And actually I always just make an effort now to say to people, are you okay? And maybe just go the extra mile and be like, are you okay? Like, but long answers only. You know, like, I heard someone say that, Stephen Bartlett from Dragon's Den, he actually, he said, we ask each other, you know, oh, are you okay? How are you? And rarely anyone replies. They just go, oh yeah, you're right. And it's very kind of throwaway. But actually he's started saying, how are you? Long answers only. And so I kind of try to encourage that in my day-to-day life, because you never know what someone's going through. And just because someone might look okay, you never know what's going on inside or in their life. So definitely just be kinder and be more open to other people's struggles and experiences.
What are your preferred coping mechanisms?
I do take a lot of time out to exercise, but my exercise routine has had to massively adapt and change since my diagnosis and my symptoms started, because not, you know, jumping around and doing, you know, heavy lifting isn't always the best thing. So I've looked at other things such as yoga and bar, things like that, so to help me stay active. And that's a huge part of my mental health. Is if I was in a position tomorrow where I couldn't exercise, I'd really struggle, because that is really my outlet. But in terms of, you know, mental health as well, self-care, so taking time out for yourself, listening to your favourite music or reading a book, watching something that, like, I had COVID 2 weeks ago and I literally just sat and binge watched Friends, and I was like, oh, I haven't done this for so long, and it felt amazing. There's nothing anyone could do about it. It's nothing I could do about it. And that just gave me a refresher.
Is there any charities or organisations that you know of that you can point people in the direction of for support?
So I mean, in terms of chronic pain, there is Endometriosis UK. There's Mind in Bradford, which supports mental health struggles for people who might not have a physical ailment or condition. It might just be that they're struggling mentally. So they are organisations that are quite closely linked to my personal experiences. There's also obviously Samaritans. My sister and I run a sort of, it's an initiative called Pain into Power, and it's specifically for women with chronic pain, and it's about offering a creative platform and a safe space for women who suffer with chronic pain, who might have conditions like endometriosis or fibromyalgia or other unrecognised conditions, and they can connect with women who have those same experiences, and that can really benefit mental health. So that's something that we're working on progressing and developing as well.
Thank you very much for your time.
And what is a personal lesson that dealing with your situation has taught you?
This is going to sound cliche, this is going to sound really kind of like it's been said so many times before, but you just can't give up. And you could argue that there's some kind of toxic energy around that, you know, it's kind of like forcing this ideology onto people. But I don't mean it in that sense. I mean it in the sense of, well, what choice do we have? You know, everybody's trying to go through life, trying to get comfortable, trying to make something for themselves. And often, sometimes that kind of thing can get clouded or kind of misconstrued. So, like, I say don't give up in the sense that, like, what choice do we have? Because I feel like not giving up is like, what would you rather do? You know, you can't just, would you rather throw everything away? Like, I'm sure you wouldn't. So you just can't give up. You have to keep kind of pushing forward. And although things seem impossible, they're very, very possible. And I'm sure, like, everybody kind of listening to this and watching this can, you know, kind of use this to kind of push themselves forward. Because I'm in a wheelchair, I've done this, such and such, why can't you do the same kind of thing? So I'd say to people, like, not to give up, as cliche as that is.
Have you overcome something significant within your personal story that you are most proud of?
I think just the fact of being able to kind of live a normal life, if that makes sense, because from a young age I was put in a special school. The doctors told me I wouldn't really be able to do much. I think they mentioned talking, reading and writing, and somehow I was able to kind of break through those barriers and kind of like live a normal life. Go to school, go to college. I'm now doing a degree, film degree at university, and for the life of me I couldn't tell you how I managed to do it, but I feel like the fact I've kind of always managed to kind of break through the barriers that have been kind of expected of me, that is something I'll always be proud of, that people can't take away from me. I'm Harvey and I acknowledge myself and others.
I'm Prabdeep and I acknowledge myself and others.
I'm Rebecca and I acknowledge myself and others.
I'm Jack and I acknowledge myself and others.
I'm Oliver and I acknowledge myself and others.
I'm Toby and I acknowledge myself and others.
I'm Gina and I acknowledge myself and others.